Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday, and welcome to another episode of Tea and Coffee with Paula and
Jay. There we go. We keep getting it. And I know some of you sent some posts. Yeah, we're cute. Yeah. We like each other. We have a lot of fun. Yeah.
yada yada yada.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you're doing all great. And it's Friday.
And it's not raining in Breton. Yay!
Yep. So this is going to be a painless episode for you.
Is it?
Yeah. It should be. But no, it's going to be fun. So right off the top, 10:30 Mountain, 12:30 Eastern. You'll be able to catch me on Nico Lagan's show, Political Orphans, Poly Orphans. So if you're around, go check that out. So I just want to put that out before I forgot.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, and it is Happy Friday. We got still productive day ahead of us. Lots of stuff going on with us. There was lots of stuff yesterday. Before we have our guests come on quickly, do you want to give us a summary of what was your day yesterday?
I went to the WWE in Edmonton. Oh my gosh, yes, I went to the panel discussion and what's next panel. This whole episode is going to be about that. We got our good friend Vince Byfield going to join us in a couple minutes here to give his front row seat review as well. But it was full of swears, it was full of yelling, it was disorderly, and that's before the event even started. Yeah, it was interesting for sure. I understand now why the panels exist. I understand why Danielle's doing them. I got some critiques for sure. There's some things I did like about it, but there's several things I didn't like about it. And they're all just, constructive criticisms, because I understand now why Danielle's doing these.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to the point where I was busy with the boys and I was watching a movie with the kids, and my friend checked in with me saying, "Are you watching the Edmonton event?" And I was like, "No." She said, "Oh my God, it's crazy."
Yeah.
So I was like, "Well, when the movie's done, I'll start checking it out." And then I touched base with you, and you were like, "Yeah, it's unbelievable." So I was like, "Well, you know what? I'm looking forward to tomorrow's show then. So then you can give us the summary and the breakdown."
I'll do my best, because we have just under an hour here to do that, and
Mm-hmm.
Vince is going to have his review as well. But if you go to my X and you can follow the stream, what I did is I put it all on my X. I was kind of like live posting it. Let me just share this with you all. You can find it on Jason Levine AB, and there it is, the Alberta Next panel, and it's a thread. So if you want to go through it, you almost step by step what happened, what was going on. I think it was a lot of fun. I was glad I was there, and we're gonna this whole episode is gonna be about it. So we'll kind of take you through those posts as well, along with a few videos from last night, and I think it's be fun. I understand why she's doing it. I don't think it's productive, but I understand why she's doing it.
Oh, interesting. Well, here's a comment here. This is a thank you. Thanks for the links last night, Jay. Got to hear much of it. Got pretty heated at times. Yeah, so Lake 10 will be looking forward to getting the breakdown of what exactly got heated and why.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much of the heatedness made it to the microphone, that made it to the audience, because there's certainly some stuff that probably wasn't picked up. But yeah, I understand Edmonton a little bit more, and I have some suggestions.
You're just painting them all with the same brush. You understand Edmonton a lot more.
Well, Vince is from Edmonton. He's an Edmontonian, so he'll speak for himself. But the best thing about last night, the best thing about going to Edmonton for things like this is leaving. Yeah, so I came home. I was kind of happy. I had a good time, and we got Vince standing by. I know he's got coffee. What did he order?
Regular.
Let's go ahead and bring him on. Good morning, Vince. How are you doing?
Morning.
Hey, good. I'm surviving after last night. Wow, what a scene!
Yeah, they
believe that was Edmonton.
Chairs. It was like a wrestling event. They were getting rowdy.
Yeah. It was. I've got a few takeaways. You saw my X post on it. So I don't know what you want to start with.
It's okay.
I sat beside one of the agitators, for lack of a better term, young man. We chatted with his mom for about 15 minutes before the event started, and he told me that he was he had just finished cancer treatment. He had I'm sorry, I can't remember the cancer was, but he showed me. He kind of did this, and he showed me the radiation burn, right, that he had on his or around this area of his body, right? But his major beefs were he didn't think that the province was doing enough for the homeless. He really went on about that quite a bit. And he also was very critical of Alberta healthcare. And I thought, did they treat you badly? And he said, no, they treated me extremely well. I guess I can't understand young people, but it sounds to me like, you should be grateful, right, for what they've done, right? And I have criticisms of the healthcare system too, but not that we should be putting more money into it, right? So, but anyway, after that, he went to the mic and he said his piece, and then he came back and he changed rather dramatically. So at some point somebody brought up the fact that the province was no longer funding COVID vaccines, and there were a significant number of people in the audience, not the majority, that were quite upset about that. And the premier pointed out that the federal government had been providing that funding all along, and that they had stopped funding it, and that the province doesn't fund all vaccines. She was trying to speak in a manner, but there was so many people shouting at her bullshit and stuff like that, including the young man. And we were pretty close. We were not front row, we were the second row, but I would say we were about 20 feet away from the premier. And it was really surprising that he got up, he started swearing and shouting. And then they sent a young lady over to sort of chastise him. And she was, not to get into it, but I would put her at about half his size. It was not the right thing to do, because if anything, it seemed to make the matter worse. He seemed more emboldened after that, right? He at one point, the front row was now glowering at him, and I wouldn't say whisper, it was a strong statement, said, sit down, stop behaving rudely, and act like an adult. And he turned away from me very petulantly and said, stop talking to me. But to his credit, he sat down, he stopped behaving rudely, and acted like an adult. He still, made a few comments, but they were not inappropriate at that point. He basically was like a regular person in the audience. I would dare to say even civilized at that point. His clapping was pretty fervent, but it was very different from the person who had just suddenly outburst like that. But I was very surprised, and it just bothered me that he was behaving in such a manner, and he was so close to the premier. And I personally think that they should not have sent a young lady over to do the chastisement. It should have been two guys in uniform, and they should have escorted him off the property, right? And got his identification to flag him so that he wouldn't be welcome at future events. Because I don't think they had warned us ahead of time that they were not going to tolerate bad behavior, but then clearly they weren't enforcing it, and so that's why it became the bedlam that it was. So yeah, it was a very sad moment in Edmonton, I think.
Well, in fairness to the organizers or the people that were running it, I know who you're talking about. That young lady, she was going around reminding people they can't record and other things. So I know who you're talking about. Yeah, and they did have some people ready if they needed to, but they had a lot of tolerance and patience, because there was one lady that even took the mic and wouldn't give it back up for a while, and another lady that kept heckling every single time until eventually they said, "Okay, it's time to remove her." And that was at least 75% throughout the event before they even initiated that. And they're not filtering at the door, clearly. Other events, I know that Mark Carney's event, when he came to Calgary, people couldn't get in. Media couldn't get in. I know that even Poilievre's in Winnipeg, some media couldn't get in. But at this event, they weren't doing that kind of thing. So a little bit of kudos for them on that, But yeah, it definitely got rowdy. And I do remember that gentleman had some sort of throat cancer or something like that. The moderator, he needs his own show, because what he did was he goes, "Well, it sounds like everything's good for you now," like, because he was yelling. But yeah, that moderator, he had some good comments there. It kind of kept things a little bit more lively. He might have been poking the bear a little bit at times, but I
Yeah,
do agree with some of these comments.
he said one comment that got a real outburst. I can't remember what it was, but the guy beside me said, that was not the best thing to do. He was doing what you said. He poked the bear there, and anyway, I just can't remember what the comment was, but it did
I think
arise.
it was. I think the comment was a majority of you are well behaved or something like that, and then the other side that wasn't, all of them just lost their mind on that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So the way to respond to somebody accusing you of misbehavior is to be misbehaving, right? Yeah. Just anyway, it was. That's. I guess we should expect that. I don't agree. I think they really should have removed a few more people, but because at one point the weird thing is that the mob mentality was starting to take root. Fortunately, the majority of the place was not part of that mob. But if it had been, say, three quarters people like the agitators, I would be concerned for the safety of the premier at that point, because it was anyway. It just bothered me and it saddens me. It was not a proud day for Edmonton, that's for sure.
Well,
I just want to,
go
if
ahead.
you don't mind, yeah, I was just finding out. So, was there a fine line between having your say and just flat out being disruptive?
Yeah, there was kind of a fine line there. Most of it, I'll get into it because Vince has got to run soon. But most of it wasn't on topic, and it wasn't a good format. So I'll get
Yeah.
into that as well. But I did notice that the agitators were getting less and less. So once they had their time at the mic, once they had their scream, a lot of them would just leave. Like
Yeah.
it was packed at the beginning. It was standing room only, and then by the end, there was about 20% of the crowd
I-
gone.
I noticed that the whole empty seats when I was looking at the videos.
Yeah.
Yeah, it got to a point where, that row. I thought this place was meant to be packed, but I could see empty rows. So those are
Yeah,
people that
it was happy because it was standing room only at the beginning. Like even on the side and at the back, there were people standing. The seats were full, and then by the end, a good 20% were gone.
Yeah, those folks just left immediately after. I just wanted to say I agree with you that I understand why the premier is doing this, and I believe it needs to be done. That said, there is real need to go into these topics in a more meatier fashion than what was done. And I personally am a big fan of debates, having two people speak for each side or one person speak for each side, try to keep it in a formal manner, and be able to ideally find really good representatives to express the points of view of both sides. I think that sort of thing would much better serve the discussion and move it forward. But we don't seem to be able to accomplish that, primarily because often not both sides do not want to engage in a debate, or one side does, but the other side refuses to participate. And I suspect that's because they can't, right? But anyway.
No, you're not incorrect at all.
well-
and on this show, I try lots of times, Vince. I tried to get the other side to come on. The Thomas guy that's doing that petition, he was invited. He seemed willing until the very last minute. He just stopped talking to me. He didn't even give me a no. He just stopped talking to me. So it's very difficult, Vince, to get the other side to even show up. So they show up on a mic, yell, and leave, but they won't get up on a stage and have a conversation. I've tried hard to do that.
Yeah, I've had the same experience. But at the same time, they are there and they are people, and somehow we've got to get the conversation going. I think that the most effective thing was just that 15 minutes beforehand, really getting to know these people, because the guy beside me, they were very critical of the healthcare system and homeless people. Guy beside me was a nurse for 40 years and dealt with the very problems that they were being critical of, both the healthcare system and the homeless. And he had a lot of firsthand experience to share with them, which I think they weren't expecting. And so I think even though they wouldn't acknowledge it, they walked away from that event with a lot more information just from that 15-minute discussion with Miles than from the shenanigans that went on after that.
Yep. So I'm going to get into some of my critiques about it, maybe the format. I think there could be changes to make it more productive, and maybe some advice for people who are going to go to the next ones. But Vince, I know you only had about 10 minutes, so if
Yeah.
that works for you, you can go ahead and have say anything you want to Alberta. You got their ear.
Oh, okay. Well, I am busy trying to save the provincial museum, the old provincial museum of Alberta, and hopefully we can have a discussion about that when I'm at liberty to talk about it more. But it is very important. I've been trying hard to save it. I found out, I was just shocked about last fall that they were, when they announced that they were about to destroy it, or as the government likes to call it, deconstruct it. Anyway, so I've been trying very hard to find a solution for that building. It's a very unique piece of architecture, and it just bothers me that there would even be a discussion going on right now to destroy one of the few buildings that we have, which is so distinctive, and is a deep part of Alberta history, especially Edmonton history. So but thank you, Jason. I just thank you for showing up. I'm sorry that Edmonton treated you so badly, but
I was treated fine. I was treated fine. The entertainment was great. I had no problems. But thank you, Vincent, for
but
your
you were
time.
glad to leave. You were glad to leave. Yeah.
Well, I have a family I love to get back to, so the journey home is always great. I'll be back in Edmonton for something, I'm sure, soon. But
I hope
Vince,
so.
thank you
I
so
hope
much.
so. You're always welcome at our home. So
Yes, and yes, and I'm going to take you up on your offer. I'm going to come and do your interview. I'll bring some more people by, and we'll have a great day soon.
excellent. Have a great day, you two.
You too.
Thank you
Bye,
very much.
Vince.
Take care, Vince. Bye. Awesome. Yeah, Vince is cool. There we go. Push this button. Yeah. Yeah. So there we go. We got some more evidence from somebody on the ground in row two. And he was beside one of the major agitators. I remember that guy. He went up. He started off very cordial. He wanted to critique the healthcare, but I think he was very disappointed because they were the moderator, and if you watch the video, and we may restream it this weekend, the moderator was very adamant that they're going to stick to the 6 subjects. And then on each one, they were trying to stick to the subject.
Right.
And we'll get into that. But that's not what happened. Okay, people came up because healthcare isn't the entire purpose that they were trying to lay out was what should we be doing with Ottawa, the relationship between Alberta and Ottawa. And they came up with the 6 main points, and we'll jump on those soon. But healthcare isn't one of them. Healthcare is a provincial issue, and it's an issue between the province and the people, and that wasn't on the list, but that came up a lot. And this young man, that's what he wanted to talk about, and they tried to kind of just. First, he said, "Here I am. I'm a cancer survivor. I got my treatment. It was from my throat and this kind of stuff." He named the cancer, but the moderator, he certainly agitated some of the crowd as well. Because he did make a comment. Well, this is not what you were here for. This is not, and I'm sure if you watched it live, you heard a lot of these. But he did say to this guy, "Well, it sounds like," because he started yelling. He's like, "Well, it sounds like the surgery worked for you," something like that. Like, wow, I can't believe he said that live on a mic. But look, there were a lot of people upset, and they used this forum to yell at the premier, for sure, and her government, and blame her government. There was Indigenous people there that did that as well. There's an Indigenous gentleman on the panel, and one lady basically said that the premier needs to speak to First Nations people who she doesn't pay, implying this guy doesn't speak for us because you're paying him to be on a panel. But I will also echo what Vince said. I'm surprised it wasn't more. So a good majority of that audience, and you'll see through some of the straw polling, which was just, raise your hands.
Right, yeah.
And I did my best to kind of like gauge how many people were on what side of the question. A vast majority was civil. They were there for, I guess, to listen. They didn't really take the mics as much as the other group did. But I know why now Danielle Smith does this. And one of the critiques that I heard from our followers and the people that provide us the critiques was, well, Jason Kenney did one of these already. He went around talking to Albertans about these same subjects, like how do we fix the relationship with Ottawa? And now Danielle Smith is basically just doing the same thing. Another critique is, well, this is a waste of time. She already knows what's going on. These kind of things are some of the critiques about Alberta Next. And also another one is, well, the only issue really is separation, whether or not we separate, not anything else at this stage. I think the value in this particular thing is specifically for Danielle Smith, so that she can hear what people are saying and how upset they are. She wasn't part of the other panel. She didn't experience that. And she is trying to steer a conversation towards 6 major subjects in her mind that are important to her with Alberta and Ottawa's relationship. But now she's hearing about what real Albertans sound like. Like when she came out, and I don't mean all Albertans, like a certain group.
Yes.
When she came out as premier, she was really trying to compromise with that DEI group, that woke group. She was really trying to have conversations with them, and in certain ways it worked, but in some ways it didn't. So I think her going through this experience, hearing from that group, being uncivilized, being rude, being obnoxious, being disruptive, I see that as a benefit for her to maybe understand that there are certain topics and certain people you just won't be able to work with. So get back to work.
Yeah,
That's kind of where that's kind of where I think there's value. And by the way, there's very little value in these panels, in my opinion. That would be one little piece of something that's valuable. She's got to experience some of this disruption and disorderly conduct from a certain group that she appears to be trying to work with, because she's got to learn that some people on some subjects are just, you can't work with them.
Right. And we have a little bit of a chat going on in our locals area. So Becky had said that this was good because, on the other hand, we do have freedom of speech. So the people who were swearing one, although she doesn't approve, but we have freedom of speech. But then Crystal turns around and says, we have freedom of approved speech. Very different.
Sure. And I see both of their sides. I'm going to be a little bit less accommodating. When you're there for a purpose, there's a layout, there's a structure or format. It's not helpful to break from that.
Agreed.
And it's not helpful to use these mics as just a soapbox. Maybe what could be helpful, and I want to critique the format a little bit, maybe what could be helpful is an open mic section, maybe at the beginning or something. Because what they did is they set up 2 lines for mics, and then they had the 6 subjects, they played a video, and they wanted to get into that subject. But they only took maybe 4 or 5 people from each mic, so about 10 people max, 45 seconds each on the subject, which meant everybody else in line couldn't have been there for that subject. So when they switched to the next one, they were no longer on that subject. So what it ended up happening was people stood in line for like the whole event. Like the line got long to get to the mic.
To have their say.
Right, to have their say. And it didn't work. So you would have somebody, it was now about the police, Alberta police, and they still want to comment on the pension plan. I think the only subject this should have been about, and I'll get into my reasons, is the pension plan, because that was the only subject that all throughout the entire event, it was clear that one was 50-50 in that crowd. Some people were not sure, some people were sure. That was the only subject that it was clearly there was no majority consensus on. All the other ones, it was either 2/3 or higher in support of the idea of going ahead and doing that. So that's what I took out of that. I'm like, these other 5 subjects, it's clear. Yes, they want police. Yes, they want constitutional change.
Right.
Like it was clear. But the pension plan was the one that kind of wasn't clear. It was about 50-50. So if this was strictly about whether or not the pension plan is something Alberta should have, the audience would have been more prepared for that. The questions could have been more geared towards that. And I think that would have been far more productive.
In the conversations that you've had with people in attending this event, do you think the Alberta pension plan could be the swaying block that moves people from wanting to stay separate from Canada and become sovereign, or if we obtained it, be willing to stay in Canada if we had it? Like what do some people want the Alberta pension plan to also result in? Just that and stay in Canada, or we're going to separate and then also have our Alberta pension plan? Like what is it? Do people want it and still to stay in Canada?
Okay, so there's kind of two answers to that. Let's take the separation, the independence movement out of this for a second. I'll get to that in a second. Albertans don't understand, and this is something that Nadine Wellwood covered quite well in my interview with her, which will be coming out soon. They don't understand at how bad the Canadian pension plan has been run, how underwater it is, and now insecure it is. Now, I don't mean like people can break into it. I mean, it may not be there for you by the time you get there. So there's not real security that is going to be there for you. And how much Alberta should have its own pension plan like Quebec, because it could be managed. You can have a lot more direct access to it. It will be a lot more beneficial, and some of the things that were highlighted. So Albertans, especially the ones on the pension right now, don't understand how good it would be if Alberta was doing its own pension plan, and how bad the Canadian pension plan is, because it looks good because your check comes in, but it's so mismanaged, it's underwater, and it could collapse at any time. So the first part of this is Albertans just don't understand. And you saw that in the crowd, because it was like a 50-50 mix. Like, should we do it and should we not? And this was, I would say, about 80% conservatives in that room, 20% anti-conservatives. I don't even want to put them in a group. They're just anti-conservative.
Right.
And still, even in that group, it was about 50-50. Now, take in the movement to separate. Here's what I think Danielle might be doing, which could ensure that separation referendum vote passes. And if you look at the movement, the young people, it's over 50% that are in support of independence for Alberta. And as you go up that scale, that number drops. When you get to the pensioners, the people that collect that, that's where the least amount of support for Alberta independence is. That group is the one that, whether it's nostalgia, like you heard with Betty Carbert, she's like, there's no way, until she learned more. And then she's like, yes, okay, I like that idea.
Yeah.
I think we should do it. That's the group which is large, not in support of it. And if they were, it would be a 60-65% yes vote. That group, the number one issue is the pension.
Right.
If
Of course.
Danielle is capable of making these people understand that Alberta pension plan is the best bet, that would alleviate their number one concern about independence.
I can see that.
Alberta can be there for them and their pension, they're in.
Yep.
Okay. And if one of the things means, well, okay, we're doing a pension plan and we're going to be separating because we can do that, I think there'd be a lot more support for the movement if that happened. And that's why I think this panel should focus on the pension plan.
Yep.
Are you pushing some buttons?
I'm pushing some buttons.
Yeah. So my critique is there's 6 issues on the table. 5 of them don't need to be there because there's already a tremendous amount of support for the UCP's plan for it. It's the pension plan, which is the one that doesn't have enough support yet. And that's where I think these panels would do well. If they were about whether or not we should have a pension plan, I think it'd be far more constructive.
Excellent. All right. Go tell us how everything went. You said there were 6 main subjects.
Yep. So what we'll do here is we'll pull up my post because that's where I noted everything. And the 6 main subjects are equalization and transfers, Alberta pension plan. I think it's the only one that needs to be there. The police force, constitutional changes, immigration reform, and provincial taxes. So what we're going to try and do, because we're already halfway through the show, I don't think I'm going to play the videos, because we were going to play the little commercials that came along with each one of these. But if we did that, we'd be out of time.
Sure.
So I'm going to quickly go through them. So the equalization transfers, it's clear that there's a lot of money leaving. Now, some of the people that pick up the mic, okay, so the people that went to the mic were not people that were there to support anything. They were anti-everything. Very, very few of the people that took a mic were there like, yes, we should do the transfers, or yes, we need the police force. Very few. Majority of them were, no, I don't want to hear that. So the most vocal group there was the smallest group. And that's usually the squeaky wheel, right?
Yeah.
The smallest group there overall was the dominant group at the mics. So some of the comments around transfer payments that we heard was, well, I have no problem with that. We're helping Canada. It's part of the Constitution. We should be doing it. I don't think it hurts Alberta. You know, these are some of the comments coming out of the mics. It's like, wow, like, okay, okay. I guess you're a nationalist, like the Forever
Yeah.
Canada group, which is the one that's trying to get the petition to stay in Canada, was clearly represented there because quite a few times at the mic, and I think even during the first round of mics, somebody asked Danielle to, or demanded actually, Danielle sign that petition, and she didn't. She didn't. It came up a couple times, but there was nothing really constructive out of the mics on this question on whether or not that can happen. Like, for example, the very second person up was our good friend Brett Olin,
Good man.
Bow Valley Credit Union.
Yep.
And he kind of touched on transfer because transfer is money. Money is what his question went into, which was currency sovereignty. Like, we should have our own currency. He says like the number one issue that he sees is our tie to the Canadian currency. We have very little control over what happens to it, and it has a lot of impact on us all over our economy and how our life is. So he brought that up. And yeah, and then right away, so here's my note. The first upset person tried to ask questions about healthcare, but the mic was shut down because that question is not on a provincial list. That happened a lot. Like, they did have a mic shut off button. And this is also where we ran into the first lady who wouldn't give up the mic. So they tried.
Yeah.
They were trying. They didn't want to bring in security and stuff like that, but it's pretty crazy. There you go. The first lady still hasn't returned the mic. The crowd erupted when the request for AB to sign, Danielle to sign the petition, stay in Canada. Now, when I say erupted, I just mean that loud squeaky wheel. Now you can see them. There was a dozen people with masks overall, and they were in little groups throughout the venue. And sometimes they would be at the mic and do their yell, and they would turn around to their group and fist pump the air like they're so proud of themselves. But as Vince said, it got disorderly at times. But they didn't really debate. There was nobody that really stood up and said, yes, we need to get rid of the transfer payments, other than the panel.
Right.
So the panel itself was good at presenting the video, saying, here's how much money that's going. And I think we're going to replay the video this weekend. So go watch it. You'll see these infomercials that are providing a bunch of data and information.
And the pros and cons, because that's one thing I got out of it when I was tagging the videos. They were saying, however, like, this is all the sunshine and rainbows. However, there's also this side of things to be aware of.
That happened more on the later ones than the first ones, because what is the pro for equalization? There is none. Yeah. So no, that happened more for let me see which one. The provincial taxes. The provincial taxes one. They said, yeah, in order to do our own provincial taxes, we'd have to hire 5,000 people.
Yeah, there's infrastructure that needs to be put in place and the time for that.
Yeah. So as we went through those, you're right. Alberta pension plan was the next one that came up. And again, this is what I think the panel should be about, only this issue. Because it was, I don't want to use the word divisive, because divisive implies that there's two sides fighting. This was the one that wasn't as certain.
And more information and clarity needs it. Yeah.
So a straw poll for the equalization and transfers was about 2/3 for and 1/3 against. And again, that's just me gauging the number of arms in the crowd. And the straw polls started to get a lot more skewed as the anti-conservatives were leaving, because he didn't stay for the whole event. So as we get through these straw polls, it starts to move. But the question was that they wanted the mic for the transfer one. Should Alberta take a lead role in working with other provinces to reform federal transfers and equalization? So the straw poll on that one was yes, it should. There we go. So 2/3 yes, 1/3 no. Then the next question that came up was the pension plan. So should Alberta create a pension plan with the same or better benefits that the Canadian pension plan has, I guess? Here's where they compared Quebec's system to what Alberta should have, because they have their own pension plan.
That's right, they do.
And that was a very common theme throughout. It's like, hey, we're not breaking new ground here. Look, hey, we're basically playing catch up, should we? This is the one I think they should spend a lot more time on. This is where a lot more information should be going out. This is where a lot more Albertans should understand it, because if this issue was supported First, it'd be great for Alberta to have
Right.
their own pension plan, bring the upfront money that comes. I think in the video said 140 billion. APP says it's somewhere around 350 billion. That money should be coming, being used, being invested, and being rolled out as a pension. That's where a lot more of it should be done. But again, as you see here, people are using the mic to soapbox instead of sticking to the format of addressing the question, because that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. But speaking to the templates that already Quebec's created, I think that was something that Danielle, I caught, she touched upon at the end. So like, exactly, this is not new. Quebec's been doing this, and maybe it's time that we actually have a look at seeing what Alberta can do that would be similar.
Yep. And that's what we get to at the end of this, because it's exactly what happened. So straw poll of this was about 50-50. So this wasn't a clear majority at all.
So more education and information needs to come out.
Agreed. And that's why if they changed the format, if they focused the panel on this, I think that's why there'd be a lot more benefit. So then the next one was, should Alberta create an Alberta Police Services to take over community policing from the RCMP? This question should not have been asked in Edmonton.
Because they already have
the police force.
Yeah, they already
have their own.
That was something
force.
They said. Edmonton, Calgary, they already have their own. This is for everywhere else.
Correct. So as I stood there, and I had to stand because people got in front of the media table, I couldn't see anything, so I had to stand. As I stood there, I'm like, this is the wrong forum for this.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of, no, don't do it. The RCMP is great. Even one lady said, no, you shouldn't do it because a new police force will have horrible training and we don't want to have untrained people with guns. Like, wow, really? That's what you think is going to happen?
That's the reasoning why you would say no.
Yeah,
Wow.
but what I thought, and I think I made a comment here about this, was there was a lot of Team Canada stuff going on. The panel reminded that Alberta used to have its own police force. That's true. And there we go. It is interesting how many, and this is my comment, how many comments from Edmontonians are against replacing RCMP when they already have the Edmonton Police Services? Would they like to transition to the RCMP?
There you go.
Like, if you're so pro RCMP, then get rid of the Edmonton Police Services and then experience it. This particular question, I don't think needs to go on the panel at all, because where they don't have the RCMP, it's already done.
Right.
Okay. And where there are the RCMP, it's an overwhelming majority that says we need to have our own. So whether it's more municipal, like in Drayton Valley and Red Deer and other places that are transitioning to the
Grand
municipal,
Prairie as well.
Grand Prairie, and then all the rural, you ask anybody rural, they're like, no, we absolutely do not want the RCMP.
Yeah.
So I don't think this question needs to be there. Edmonton was the wrong place to be even talking about it, because they're not going to transition to the RCMP. So that one, again, was a lot of soapboxing than anything else. The straw poll on that one, 80% yes. It was clear that even that group, because again, it was about 80-20 conservative and anti-conservative. So it seems like all the conservatives agree we should have our own police force. The next question, should Alberta take the lead role in working with other provinces to pressure the federal government to amend the Canadian Constitution to empower and better protect provincial rights?
Yes.
Okay, but here's where I'm going to be critical. This is another one that shouldn't be there.
Yeah, sure.
Because what is that going to do? The pressure's been there since 1906.
Exactly.
Okay?
Oh, yeah, this is exactly. It's not. There are certain subjects that are just not new, and and again, why bring it up at this panel? Do you really think the answer is going to be different?
Correct. And the first comment nailed it. It was that Alberta has already tried to work with Ottawa, and they get a shout out to Alberta Prosperity Project to, if you want to learn the history of all the efforts that Alberta has done already. Another reason why I don't like this particular question in here is, well, that's impossible. There's not going to be a constitutional convention. The Meech Lake Accord and the Charlottetown Accord, these were all attempts to go ahead and open up the Constitution. It's not going to happen. And no amount of pressure. Like, what pressure? You're going to just keep yelling at them? You're going to keep bringing them into court? Like, what do you even mean by pressure?
Yeah, I know. Look, yep. I know.
Yeah, I get the spirit of this. We need change. But the election, representation in the Senate, there is no ability, there is no lever for Alberta to put on any pressure
Yep.
on this particular issue. Quite frankly, the only pressure we can put on is separation. That's the only pressure. So that should be happening. And by the way, the audience kept bringing that up. The antis and the fours. The antis kept saying, you guys are separating, you guys are divisive. This whole thing's about, they kept confusing the word sovereignty with separation. And they kept accusing the panel of promoting separation, which they didn't. It was pretty clear. They made it darn clear that they're not there for that. But the audience kept bringing that particular subject up. So if I could have my way, this would be about pension plan and sovereignty, or not even sovereignty, separation, on whether or not people want that. If you gauged my own straw poll, a majority of people there wanted that, and a small minority of the people there were afraid of that because they kept bringing that up.
Fear is a good description, I would say. Yes, correct.
Yeah.
It's fear.
Also, I put it as clear that the NDP is well represented in Edmonton, because several comments about how the UCP is destroying Alberta by even asking these questions. Okay, they're basically, don't change a darn thing that Notley did. Keep it the way it is. In fact, give us more. And there was somebody that made a comment like that too. There's an immigrant, and I think we'll get to that in the immigrant question.
Yeah, immigration's next.
Yeah. And this is where this one part came up that Vince was talking to. So answering the question why Alberta is not paying for COVID shots. So again, they went to a healthcare question. AB's or Danielle Smith said the federal government is the one who pulled the funding. So she explained how this was funded by the federal government. They pulled the funding, pushed it down to the provinces to start paying for it. And it was like $250 million in just wasted COVID shots that weren't even used.
Isn't our federal government the ones that's like was building facility, bought all the shots?
Yep. But anyways, her point was, look, $250 million was wasted because it wasn't even used. Most Albertans don't even take it anymore. And the federal government stopped paying for it. And we had to make the decision because her whole point was the provincial government healthcare system covers necessary healthcare, surgeries, essential, not extras. And they considered the COVID shot as extra. That's why you can get it if you want it, but you have to pay for it. This small group was really upset with that. And this is where, yes, a lot of people were swearing at her. So she said, look, the federal government's the one that pulled it. And that's where that guy by Vince and others said BS, yelled it. And her response, though, she's like, it's not BS. And she used the full word. It's true. And that got a lot of support for her. People love it when their leaders swear.
Yeah. Yeah, that Trump meme is still pottering around the internet too.
Yeah, but that showed strength, and she's not going to be bullied, and that was good.
Right.
The straw poll on that one was very strong, 90% at least, that, yes, we need change. Now, I translate that into these are people that are going to also vote yes on the referendum to leave, because that is the only way to get constitutional change for Albertans, is to leave the current constitution, make our own. That's how we get our constitutional change. So there is strong support there.
I just want to add, there's a comment here from Kim. That's happening everywhere. The inability to know the difference between sovereignty and separation. Yep,
100%. And that's why, it's a tough one. People think sovereignty means separation. It doesn't. It means you're doing your own thing. And that's why Danielle is pushing sovereignty within a united Canada. We should be a stronger province in Canada. Separation means to leave. Independent means doing it on your own. Statehood means two things. You can be your own state or join a state. Even Commonwealth, they use that term as well. That could mean under the Commonwealth with the king, or your structure is to have a commonwealth where all the money is shared. It's a little bit closer to communism, but strong support for change. And Alberta doesn't have the lever of power to make that happen. So hopefully people will wake up to that. The only way to change that is to secede. The next one was, should Alberta take more control of the immigration system to counter Ottawa's open border policies? This one got that group really upset.
I bet.
Quite a few times they're like, stop blaming the immigrants for the problems and things like that. And they didn't. And in fact, the first question, and hopefully made it into the replay, was it was absolutely disgusting how your video attacked immigrants, and it didn't.
Mhm.
In the moderator's video, like that wasn't in there. Stop talking like that, along those kind of things. Like that's not what it was there, but the person just kept going.
Right.
A consistent heckler who was asked to respect the process has been asked to leave. So at this point, that's when they kind of had enough with one particular heckler who did exactly that. Every single question, every single, like just one
Mhm.
person just kept yelling. One valid question was why Danielle has not used the Sovereignty Act and the powers of that to address the immigration issue, because the Sovereignty Act basically says things that are under our jurisdiction, we are going to do it on our own,
Yeah.
and immigration is one of them. And she replied that there was an attempt to work with the federal government. However, they stopped responding in good faith. And the purpose of this panel is to reopen the pressure. I disagree. You can just do it.
Well, it's again bringing Quebec. From what I heard yesterday, that Quebec can control 55% of the immigrants that come into their province.
Yeah, there's a formula. Yeah, there's a formula for Quebec,
Mhm.
and they definitely have a say. What the panel presented was, okay, yes, this is a joint issue. The federal government has to control who comes into the country, but Alberta wants to be able to not necessarily pick and choose who comes to Alberta, but pick and choose who receives services.
So exactly who gets the services.
Yeah. So, and they put up this little graphic where a majority of people had check mark on it, but some of them had the X's on it, and said basically we want to be able to withhold social services based on contributions and value to Alberta as an immigrant. There was at least one person who's an immigrant who supported it and said, yes, we need to be better at this. But one person said, immigrants aren't the problem. We already vet. We already get the best of the best, along those lines. And the crowd did not agree.
Anymore. They don't.
The crowd
They
did
used
not
to.
agree.
They used to, not anymore.
And another person used a mic to call Trump a fascist. He never used the word Trump, the name Trump, but he certainly said the man south of us or something along those lines. Yeah. So it was kind of a little bit crazy there. And also, Danielle talked about abolishing the Senate at this point, and the crowd liked that.
I bet.
Yeah. And then the straw poll of this one, it was strong. 95% for yes. There needs to be, Alberta should take control of who comes or who receives services within Alberta when it comes to immigrants. And then there was one comment from an Indigenous person that says, I find it disgusting or confusing that immigrants are complaining about immigrants. We helped you guys when you came here. It's our land, yada, yada, yada. And then she's the one that made the comment about the First Nations gentleman on the panel. He's not real or something like that. He actually had some very good points when it came to the policing. So we'll get to that, I think, next year. So the straw poll was 95% strong for that one. Next one was, should Alberta collect... Oh, wait, I think we missed the police one.
No, we did touch upon it.
No, but I didn't read the question.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, I did, because then and the tone, yeah, that's right. So, so the First Nation guy said, well, look, on a lot of reserves, like the Blood Tribe, and he listed off a few others, they have their own policing. So it's makes sense that policing should be local. It should be done by the people that live there. And he was in support of abolishing the RCMP, and some tribes are doing that. Some of the larger ones already have their own police force. So there's a lot of good contributions from the panel members. Should Alberta collect all provincial personal income taxes rather than having Ottawa do it for us? So this one is where the video said, look, it's going to be expensive for us to do it. But the savings could offset that because we could have a smarter taxation here. And again, Quebec does it. The audience had no valid questions at all about this one, and there was no straw poll. It just kind of went off the rails at this point. Because a lot of people were getting concerned that they wouldn't be able to get to the mic. So you had people in the line yelling now at this point. They didn't even have the mic, but they were yelling. And here we go. So then they opened up to, are there any other ideas you have on how we can strengthen Alberta's sovereignty within a united Canada? And no, there was nobody that really spoke to that question at all. They just use it as an open forum at that point. A comment that Alberta should take control sovereignty, just like Quebec has got a large applause. So the moderator, what he did at one point is he basically said to Danielle Smith, look, explain to everybody why we should be closer to Quebec's system.
And that's the bit I caught from her.
Yeah, and then that's what she did in her closing. But the moderator kind of said that it's going to come, so basically stop talking about that until Danielle addresses it. A world citizen declared herself as a world citizen came up, and that she's upset with any conversation against Ottawa. She thinks she's basically thinking we deserve what we get because we complain so much. That was basically her position. Like, basically take whatever mommy and daddy gives you. Mommy being Ottawa, daddy being Montreal. Just take whatever they allow and be happy. It was like, wow. Here's one thing that I think would be very, very productive. These people need to move to Ontario. They need to go to Toronto, some of these people, because they'd be far happier there. And I'm not saying this to get rid of them. They're clearly unhappy. They don't like the government here. It's not going to get back to NDP. It's not going to turn liberal suddenly. This is not a place where that's going to happen. So they should go where that is. I think they'll be happier. The gentleman with the cancer, he'll be around a lot more people like him who want the handouts. One of them was the immigration question. One immigrant herself, she said, I'm an immigrant, like 3 years or something like that. You keep blaming immigrants for the housing issue. So the solution to that is the government needs to build more houses.
Build more house, I call
for immigrants. It's like, wow, good luck with that one. Not a chance. Not a chance. But yeah, that was one of the ones that came up. And the audience, there was a lot of booing and cheering. There was a majority of people that were there for Alberta.
Good.
It's getting bad in here. Several are screaming out and swearing at the panel. That happened for sure. A lot of it. And some of it I don't even think was picked up on the stream. Some was, but there was a lot all over the place happening.
Like, what are you trying to achieve? You're having a tantrum when you're using loud, insulting language.
Well, this is what I think is beneficial to Danielle. She needs to hear this. She needs to go through some of this because she started as premier thinking she can bridge the gap, bring everybody together, really work with all sides. But she needs to learn that there's a side that you definitely won't be able to work with, no matter how much you try, how civil you try to be. You're just not going to. The same thing with Carney. She came in when Carney was elected. She was optimistic. She's like, he's pragmatic. I think we can work with him. I think he understands. He might understand the economy better than the other guy. But she's learning there's no working with this guy. So I am sad that people behave this way. But I think what it's going to do is guide Danielle to where she can do her best work.
Or have her be a little bit more firm with trying to get certain things done. Like,
well, just do her best work.
Yeah.
Alberta is like 80%, and the moderator made this. A vast majority of you guys are civil, very willing to see change. I think she needs to put more of her effort towards the 80% and stop focusing so much on this 20% that's not really willing to work with her. Every time she does anything that works for them, they want more. There is no appeasing them, and they are going to be aggressive no matter what she does. So that's what I think the value of this panel is specifically for Danielle. Is she's getting exposed to, oh, we can't work with that. There is no negotiation here. Similar to what's going on with Carney right now. It's like, oh, I can't work with him. He is not willing to negotiate.
Nope.
She has to learn these lessons because that's what's going to help get her, I think, back to getting the real work done, which is absolute change here. There's that housing issue with the immigrant. During final comments, the audience is about 80% supportive of the panel, while the others are loudly upset the conversation is even happening. They don't want anybody to talk. Just keep it the way it is.
How dare you?
Yep. And then Danielle's final comments, and look, we're pretty much on time. In her final comments, Danielle is explaining how the federal government is not making sense. For example, she was talking about how net zero, there's a requirement for Alberta to be, I think it was 20% net zero. and there's like 200 something thousand cars sold in Alberta, which makes it about 44,000 cars that need to be net zero vehicles. But Canada as a whole only produces
That's right.
25,000.
They can't even produce that amount of numbers.
Right. So it makes it impossible. They're impossible targets that she's laying out. She's like, this is just ridiculous. She touched on how diplomacy is not working. So I'm glad she's learning that lesson. I knew that. I still don't think she's read his book Values. She really should. Immigration needs to be dropped to a sensible level, like 1%. That got support because nobody's like anti-immigrants or immigration. It's sensible immigration.
Yep.
And it's quality immigrants, ones that contribute, not take. Like one lady who was an immigrant, she stood up and she said, listen, I should have to pay for healthcare. Any other country in the world would make me buy health insurance.
Mm-hmm.
This is like the only country that doesn't. And that makes sense because why should a country cover her healthcare?
Mm-hmm.
Because she's never paid into it. And she thinks that at least there should be health insurance that is paid for by the people that want it that are not on the universal healthcare yet. She compared the advantages of Quebec. So this is where the whole, we should be more like Quebec.
Mm-hmm.
So including they have international offices around the world, collecting income tax, the tax points, policing, pension, immigration program, agriculture. They have a lot more control over what's going on there.
Yeah,
And
she's touched on the dairy. She made a reference to
Yep.
that.
Yep. And then some final comments from her. Do we want to be more like Quebec in managing our own affairs? The audience was a yes, for sure. And then she was talking about like, why didn't we do this before? What's different today?
I liked her explanation of that.
Yeah. She's like, we're bigger now. We can handle it. No problem. And then is it the right time now to do this? I think it is. So she really could call this Should Alberta Be Quebec panel, because I think people could understand that more. Some of the people thought that Alberta's trying to break away from the federal government, trying to get special treatment, are just upset that we're not treated a certain way. But there's another province in our country that has
Right.
exactly what it is that we're talking about here. And so, yeah, those were my comments. And I do want to thank all the people that came up to say hi. I was at a media table. There's about a dozen of us. I was the only one there that had people come up and talk to. They ignored the rest. So the CBC and National Post and the Edmonton Journal and the rest, just on their laptop doing their things. I had a lot of people come up and we chatted.
That's
so
nice.
That's nice.
That's nice.
Well, there you go. We got a couple more minutes, barely. So hopefully that was a nice little breakdown for you. It was entertaining. We're going to try and get the video. We're going to restream it this weekend.
I think it's a good idea.
Tonight is going to be the Breton APP meeting. And I think we're going to restream that one too. So live. We got freedomcalendar.net, Max. He was there last night. He's going to be live streaming it. So we're going to do our best to set that up. I'll show you how to do that. And yeah, so maybe on the Levine show tonight, you'll see the Breton APP meeting.
Cool. Yeah.
Any last comments out of you?
No. Well, yes. I'm a no yes. I'm a no yes person. No, I thought it was good to have, and I'm hoping that with each panel they can perhaps tweak it and whether improve the setup and logistics of it, but then also perhaps tweak the questions or the time they put into it. Because like I said, there were some sections like that wouldn't really be necessarily applicable. So perhaps tweak that so they can get a much better feedback. But I don't know. Let's see. Hopefully they just learn from all of this.
I'm holding firm. There's really only one question. Well, two. If it's the question she wants, pension plan.
Yeah.
Only bring that forward. There's no reason to talk about anything else right now. But if you really want to talk about the real question, it's to leave Canada.
Right.
If she wants to gauge what's going on there, or maybe she already knows. Because as she's hearing these, a lot of people keep going back to that one. They keep bringing that back up. Why are we bothering with this? It's time to go. That came up several times. So I think this doesn't have a great value for Alberta directly, but specifically for Danielle to learn what she's dealing with, who she can and can't negotiate with, and what we can and can't get done.
Right.
I think she's learning those lessons.
I hope so. And not just learning the lessons and then doing something about it.
All right.
Yep.
Well, here we go.
All right. Everyone, have a fantastic weekend. Happy Friday. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you Monday.
And yes, if you're in the Breton area, I'll be at the Breton Community Center, 6 p.m. or 6:30. The doors open. So come hang out with Michael Wagner, myself, and others. Take care. God bless.